Hello, everybody. This is saas.unbound live, saas.unbound MA. I'm not sure how to call it just yet, but this is the session where we talk about dealing with founders burnout. And here with me, our amazing guest, Tobias Günther. Do I pronounce it correctly? I'm always struggling between like American and German pronunciation. So
A good mix is wonderful. Thanks. No,
yeah,
fine.
okay. Perfect. So Toby here is a founder of one of our beloved brands at saas.group, Tower. But other than that, 4 times SaaS founder, mentor, coach, you name it. He's got it all. We had an amazing episode of SaaS Unbound together about a couple months ago. And yeah, you should go to YouTube and check it out. But today, we're talking about burnout for a reason. Toby had a burnout in his history of building companies, bounced back, and it wasn't actually his reason to sell the company. So it's even more important to talk with you because you had an opportunity to learn from this experience and come back, and now you are ready to talk about it, which is another great reason that we're here today. People do not want to talk about it. People avoid this topic at all costs. So great to see you here, and thank you for being so honest about it.
Thanks so much for having me. I think it's a really important topic. So I'm glad and I'm thankful that you make room for it, actually. So let's see where this conversation takes us today.
Okay. All right. Well, I guess first of all, we should start with your experience, right? What led you to burnout? How did you realize it was a burnout? It wasn't just, you got tired or you no longer were interested in what you're building. So, how to know, this is a burnout, this is the factor that contributes to it, and this is what I have to deal with.
Yeah, let's start with a medical disclaimer. Maybe I'm not a doctor, I'm not a medical
Sure.
MD, so take everything I talk about today with a grain of salt and with a user's manual of myself. But it's a tricky mixture, and I think it's different for everyone. At least everyone I've been in touch with tells a different story, has a different background, has different experiences, different symptoms. So I can speak for me and for many of the conversations I've had with other people. So one thing is, of course, overwhelm. Yes, you feel overwhelmed, but that alone is definitely not enough in air quotes for burnout, because many people feel overwhelmed, unfortunately. Um, when it gets more serious and more into that direction is when you can't sleep anymore. Sleep is a good and very important factor and aspect of that whole story. And you also mentioned that already, losing interest, a lack of joy, actually, I would say, really the absence of that feeling in your life. And I don't speak about just work. I speak about, you should get suspicious if things that used to be fun, used to be joyful for you, just feel bland, gray. That's an indicator. That's a big indicator if you can't feel joy anymore. And also, I think because we have to keep in mind that burnout is a depression, right? It's nothing else. It's just a fancy word for depression in a certain context with a certain history and a certain situation. So one of the really tricky things about, and let's say depression in this case, is a deep sense of despair. So the question, why am I doing all this? Does this make sense? And most importantly, this will never get better. This is really hideous aspect of depression in general. The wrong belief that this will never end. And this is when you should seek help, actually.
Okay. All right. That's actually what my post today was about. Like, because I've talked to a few founders, not just Martin, who I posted about, and everyone ex- explains, describes their symptoms very differently. And I guess I could say I had a burnout at some point last year, but it wasn't nearly as severe as many founders talk about, right? But I can totally understand what you were saying. Like, you just feel like, okay, like what's it for? And was
Hmm.
the work that was done before for nothing? So all
Hmm.
this like month of hard work, of pushing something at work or whatever you were doing. I guess we're in a context of building a company here. Um, was it just wasting time? Was it like no one needs it anymore? And I don't need it anymore. So it was, yeah, it was very gloomy. But obviously, and again, I don't know, I don't want to say like, I don't want to compare because we're not in a competition, right?
Yeah.
But it's very important to know that burnout comes in so many colors and shapes, and um, it shouldn't be bad if you're talking about it, right? No matter how it is showing itself. All right. So, at what point did you understand that you needed some help or maybe needed a break? What did you do? What was your first
Hmm.
go-to strategy?
Yeah. I think one of the reasons why I quickly took outside help. So I quickly reached out to a therapist. I started therapy, psychotherapy. Um, and I think one of the important aspects for me was that I never felt shame attached to the topic. And to this day, I just cannot attach any shame to it. So this is, I think this is an important mindset shift for most founders uh, and leaders who feel some shame about that topic. The first mindset shift is to get rid of that shame. It's like, for me, burnout or mental health is like having back pain. It's, what's the difference, right? You suffer from an injury, let's call it. So this was one of the big reasons for me that I didn't spend too long in that situation on my own. Right? I pretty quickly looked for, I want to say, help, and of course it's help if you reach out to therapy, but also I believe that, and I think the Americans are a little bit more advanced in this topic. Everybody should have somebody to talk to, and if it's a professional who knows their stuff, wonderful, right? Why not? Even if you don't have problems, have somebody to talk to and somebody to untangle this strange thing that life is. You don't have to be in a burnout situation to do that, right? So you see where I'm going at. I hope lower the
Sure.
barrier to seek help, to seek conversations, to open up about that, because it's, compare it to, again, back problems. Everybody has back problems, or almost everybody. So let's compare it to that, and you wouldn't hold back and feel shameful for that. So I think that's really the most important thing that I got away with, or that I took away from all of this. Yeah.
Right. I think a lot of, I mean, do you go to the doctor once you have, a pain in your back? No, you go when it's like when it really hurts, when you cannot sit for longer than 15 minutes, right? So I guess that's just the mindset that has to switch. Like, if it hurts, go check it, right? And it's just another thing with our minds, because I think it just boomed over like COVID, when people were not talking to each other, and they're like, okay, there are people that I can pay to talk to, right? And it's good. It comes with benefits, so why not? But just doing it, like you said, therapeutically, without having to go all the way to burnout or all the way to depression or even overwhelming. I think we're just not there yet.
Hmm. Yes, absolutely. And then it's really sad actually that I again and again I learn about people that I think I know deeply and intimately. Then at some point they say, I didn't talk about that, but I'm seeing a therapist. What's the big deal? Oh, wonderful. Good for you, actually. But it's still attached to so much shame. And it's so sad that we look at this that way. So I think this has to change in all of our society, but especially, of course, for founders, leaders, business people, because more reluctant, I guess, than most other types of people. Yeah, that's really sad. Mhm.
Right. Yeah, and since we started talking about it already, how to navigate this communication, not with your therapist, but with your VCs, maybe if you raise some funds, with your customers, with your team, because like if you're saying, I've burned out, your team, there is a possibility they're going to think, if he's burned out, maybe, it all goes to hell. So I won't have a job in a couple of months. Why should I care? And then VCs would say, oh, we were kind of hoping you would take this further. You would be working on it for 10 more years and return us 20x, 100x on our investment. And the customers as well. If you're in SaaS, you trust the company with your data, you have some expectations, and if the founder is burned out, what does it mean for them? Are they going to have this product to work with? So a lot of founders are really afraid to hurt the image of the company. So how to navigate this, how to like be transparent about it, but at the same time navigate these like murky waters of not hurting anybody on the way.
Mhm. Yeah, good question. So I think for people who aren't in the depth of it already, my advice would be to start being more open in general with your team, with your investors, with everyone involved actually. So going deeper and opening up about the big stuff, and burnout can be a big topic, of course. But if you learn to navigate relationships and conversations in a more open way, I think it's not such a big step to talk about something like that anymore, right? So I would start today, wherever you are, and yeah, of course, if you are in the trenches, if you're really deep down in burnout, then it's a little bit of a different story. But we chatted about this before we went live, Anna. So you
Yeah.
know my answer already. I think if somebody other than you has a problem with that topic, and keep in mind, this is their problem they have with the topic. It's not really yours. So that's the first thing I would keep in mind. The other thing I would keep in mind is we live in 2023, and it shouldn't be a surprise for people anymore to hear that something like this, that burnout, can happen to people. It's really not a surprise for most people. It's tragically very common. And so I would be pretty positive and confident that people understand and that they don't exaggerate this news. So pretty relaxed as you hear about this.
Yeah, yeah, and you, like I said at the beginning, you bounced back. So, there are probably two ways around it. If you're burned out, then, you stop doing everything, maybe you sell your company, and we'll get to it when, burnout becomes the reason to walk away. Or, there's just one more left. You come back, but you have to probably learn what it is about, how to deal with it, and how to manage it next time it happens, or what to do so that it doesn't, right? So what was your story with it? How did you, obviously you had a therapist, but maybe there was something else, someone else. You also had a team, right? Did you tell them you're burned out? Did they know that you were having this situation? Did they help you get out of it? Did you have any other support systems? So what's your deal?
Yeah. So let's start with talking about mistakes being made. Because
Sure.
oh man, looking back, I think I made it seem, and I'd have to ask a couple of people on my team. I think I made it seem as if I'd been on a longer vacation. In reality, I had been in rehab for 5 weeks, right? But I wasn't honest about it. So
That was a surprise.
yeah. Yeah. And it's you hear me laughing about it. When I look back, it's so silly, it's so unnecessary and so silly to make it seem like, well, no, not a real problem. I'm just a little bit exhausted and overwhelmed. I'll take a long holiday and then it's all good. It's so silly and it's so unnecessary. And it's such a missed opportunity to grow as a person, to grow in relationship to the other people, and to grow as an organization, because you need to be able to deal with things like that. But this is a problem. This is a thing to navigate, and you have building businesses is nothing else. This is what it's about. So I deeply regret that I haven't been more open 10 years ago when I was in the depth of that. So this was the introduction, actually. What helped me, I think, is mostly a mindset shift. So apart from, let's say that again, I really took a 5 week break. I was out of the business for 5 weeks. I was in a rehab center that focused on these things, and that was good. That was the right choice. But other than that, I think the biggest lesson for me was to make that mindset shift. First, that I am not my fucking business. There's more. And also, and that I can only say that with enough distance. I've sold my company in 2021, 7, 8 years after the burnout. But I think that mindset shift that I had then also is, I would call it a healthy disillusionment. And I'll explain what I mean. I mean that winning at this game, and by public standards, I think I've won a couple of these games, and I've had my fair share of success also. But winning at this game doesn't solve all your problems. It's life goes on, and the next goal is in front of you, and the next challenge is in front of you. So the mindset change is, don't take business and your own company too seriously. It's really not. So this is, I think, the big lesson and insight for me, which doesn't mean that I'm not motivated and hungry for future success anymore. I am, but the perspective has changed for me extremely. Let me think. What else? The obvious things that you will read about and hear about is bringing more balance into your life, right? Exercise is good. Time with friends, time with family, time for yourself, for hobbies. All of that is good. All of that is important. But that's something I guess that's common sense today. And for me, very personally, meditation, actually. I rediscovered meditation. I have to say, it was part of a rehab program. And I used to meditate as a late teenager for 2 years. And then I studied, partied, and did other things. Then I rediscovered it in the rehab center. And it helped me tremendously. Why? Because it helped make this mindset shift happen that I talked about. And I think it's really, this is the most important thing. If you don't change your mindset about your perspective and about the value of your business and your work and the bigger context, then um, I'm doubtful that you will really change something. Even if you recover, you will run into the same problems again. And I've seen that a couple of times too. So, yeah.
Yeah, no, completely agree with you. You started talking about work-life balance. And just today, I got this email. I think it's like it's from Help B2B Writer or something like a request to to do a quote or something like this. And one of the questions was, how do you reach your work-life balance? Like, how do you distance yourself from work? Um, and I started thinking about it, and I thought, okay, I myself made a huge mindset shift in the last, what, 8 months since I've been with saas Group, because I burned out and I thought, oh my God, I spent hours and hours at work doing everything I could. I would be doing a podcast, and they were always live at 11 p.m. in the office. Then, stride back home in the middle of the night when my son is already sleeping. And then I thought, wait a second, that's just work. I actually love joy. I love to have fun. And I guess my answer to that question, like, how do you reach a work life balance, is very simple. You just say to yourself that your work is not your life. And, at some point during the day, to hell with it. I know it sounds a bit harsh, and it sounds like, it may sound like, oh, I don't care. But like you said, completely agree. It doesn't mean that you don't care. It just means that you've got alive. All right. So yeah, I think it's a tremendous thing. And especially now when we're all remote, what do? You work. You just, you roll out of bed and there is your desk and you work. You
Yeah.
no longer go to lunches with your colleagues. You get something out of the fridge and you work at your desk, right? So I think reaching this balance, especially for a founder, because they got everything at stake, is very important. So how do you do that? Obviously we all know there is exercise, there is good food, there is friends, there is family, there is pets, whatever you do for fun. How to convince yourself that this is something, well, it may sound silly, but this is something worth doing.
I don't have the perfect recipe. I'm very sorry to say that, but let's say if we can untangle it nonetheless.
I thought
Again,
you were a professional.
expectations ruined. I'm sorry. Yeah. The silver bullet, I know. I may sound like a broken record, but I want to go back to making that mindset shift, to understanding that life is bigger, and that there's, even if you solve all the problems in your job, even if you reach all the goals in your job, there will still be more goals, there will still be more problems and challenges. And let's start from the other end. I think this is the gift that a personal crisis like burnout can actually be for you, to deeply understand it. That's what I see as the gigantic advantage that people who have lived through burnout have afterwards. I know few people who look at their work life the same as they did before. And most of them have a much healthier and more balanced and more balanced perspective about work. So, but if you're, I understand the problem. If you're in the trenches, if you're in the depth of it, if you're in the thick of it, then you're not on the other side yet. I get that. I think trying to actively get some balance into your life with all the things that we talked about, with more time for friends and family, and a little bit for yourself, with exercise, prioritizing sleep, all of the check boxes to check, right? This is not magical. But
Yep.
the mindset shift, I think, is the thing that you have to focus on. And there are a couple of ways to go about that. For me, again, meditation is something. For others, it's religion, it's prayer. I don't know, things like these. For yet others, it's experiencing community, it's experiencing nature, all of the things that go deeper than just, I don't know, McDonald's, work, sleep, and again, repeating that cycle. Right. So I guess searching for a little bit of depth in your life will bring that balance automatically. But yeah, it's different to get started with that. Maybe another idea is to to first of all seek help. Yes, start therapy, of course, and then also talk to people who you think have a different perspective than you. So go out of your, either talk to founders who have a healthy perspective on that topic. There are founders like that. I know them. I've met them. But obviously many are just work and work and work. So be careful with that. But seek different perspectives, seek different opinions and different concepts of life, and you will see that there's different ways to skin that particular cat. And I think this can be an inspiration. Okay, this is also possible. Why not do it like that? And this person is, that's the huge benefit for me. I can say I've been successful. I've built companies for 20 years and I've sold even one. So I having that and then advocating for balance and for a bigger perspective, I think is good. We need more people like that, because if I hadn't made it through to the other end, then I could also advocate for balance and and bigger perspective, but people wouldn't listen. So you can really have both, right? You can enjoy your work, you can be ambitious in your work, you can have goals in your work, but you can also have the bigger perspective. It's a lot of people worry that they lose their edge if they go soft if they stop working for 1 hour a day, and it's just not the case, right?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I really love how you talk about actively doing something. And we talked on our previous podcast about actively looking for communication. And now you mentioned actively looking for something else but work. And I'm going to share something that helped me, because it's not like I was doing what I was doing with the late podcasts and all that because somebody, asked me to. I loved it. Absolutely. Every minute of
Mhm.
it. I would go to the office at 11 p.m. and do the podcast, and it would energize me. But uh, there was nothing else. And I started actively changing that. And what I did, and it helps me a lot, like I cannot do meditation. I get irritated so fast. It's just like, it's too quiet.
I want to
I
talk
can,
about that later on, just but I don't want to interrupt you,
yes,
but I have so
okay.
much to say about that. Go on, sorry.
How to deal with that? I mean, I can hear that cat being skinned somewhere real close. But what I started doing, what gives me some peace is checklists. Very easy. I had like this magnet board on my fridge, and I would go like, I don't know, have a healthy breakfast, check. Then take your kid to kindergarten, check. Then work until like 2 p.m., check. And then go to the pool, like, or swim, or go to the gym, or like something like this. And it would be like a very silly thing, but because I would get this little fly buzzing around my brain, you didn't check this. You didn't. I would
Mhm.
still go, because it was there on the board. I could not check it out. Right? So it helped. And after some time, it became a habit. So I truly think you need discipline, even when it comes to joy, even when it comes to fun.
Mhm.
Like, I would literally have something like "go have fun," check. and and it worked. After some time, it became a routine. And maybe, I don't know, founders are also, there is Trello, there are all kinds of things that you check out when you work on the project. So why not put, going to the pool there, or walking with your dog, or something like this. So this is what helped me.
That's awesome. That's really awesome. I'm,
Yeah.
I'm a big fan of that. I do it in a little bit of a different way, but very similar actually. I use my calendar to schedule, I don't know, yoga. After we're done,
Hmm.
I'm hopping on the yoga mat behind me. So I think it's a pretty similar approach actually to, as you say, to make it a disciplined effort and to make sure it actually happens, because your day gets eaten up so quickly by another task or another project. And if we don't make it, if we don't plan it into our day, however, with a checklist or with calendar planning, it just doesn't happen. And you said a wonderful sentence there, making it disciplined. I think that's for many of us, not for everybody. Many people will shake their heads, and I don't need a task or a calendar appointment for myself to go to the pool, but many do, and I would count myself in that camp too. So I think that's a wonderful approach. Yeah, thanks for sharing that.
Yeah, at first I thought it was like so silly, and I don't know, maybe I read about it somewhere, or maybe, oh, I know what it was, because everyone was journaling, and this is again something that I cannot do. It just, I don't know, not for me. But I would be like, okay, everyone's got their notebooks, they're writing something there. So at first it would be a notebook, but then I would put this thing on my fridge. And
Sounds
with the
great.
check-in, it's just because I'm old school. I cannot do the calendars. I have this all the time. All your questions, all the questions that we got are here, not online.
Mhm.
So, but tell me more how to meditate, because a lot of people try to do that, right? It's all over the place. If you want to deal with burnout or overwhelming work, try meditation. And for a
Mhm.
lot of people, it's not possible. Your mind gets too loud. So yeah, how to deal with that?
Oh, what a wonderful topic. How much time do we have? Um,
All
so
the time in the world. It's night here, so
so to give people a little bit of context, I said I
yeah.
rediscovered meditation during burnout, and I've taken it more seriously. Meaning, I've completed a training as a certified meditation teacher back then, because I really understood how crucial it has become, or it could be for me. What you said a couple minutes ago, I'm too itchy. It's there's too much noise in my head. This is funny. A lot of people say that. A really lot of people say that. But I would compare it to someone saying, "Well, no, I'm not fit enough to start going hiking or jogging. I'm just not fit enough." This is this is exactly the reason why you start exercising, why you start meditating, right? If you find that
That's an
your
interesting thought.
yeah, if you find your mind is so restless, then this is another reason to do it, to actually start it. And having accompanied a couple of people on their way to meditation, I can say it's the same thing for everybody. My mind isn't quiet when I sit down to meditate. So again, it's this hour is totally about perspective shifts, I think, because again, we need a perspective shift and don't see it as a problem. That's just the way it is. And the whole task is to find a way to cope with it, to better deal with it, to get a little bit of control over your mind, a little bit, but also when we start out to understand this is totally normal. This is what it is. This is okay. I'm not different than anybody else. The restlessness here up here is it's been a problem for millennia, and it continues to be one. So I wouldn't see that as a reason not to start meditating, but to start meditating actually. So,
Okay. All right, that's interesting. Yeah, because again, you read about it, and every article says ease your mind, make sure there is nothing, there is just a void, and you're just drifting into that uh, galaxy of nothing. And you're like, there is a galaxy of everything in there. And you get kind of frustrated with yourself. Is it just me? Am I so bad the meditation is not for me? So yeah, I guess the frustration is there. But okay, we kind of drifted off the topic that I wanted to talk about. So for you, burnout didn't end up being the reason to sell a company, right? But for a lot of people, it is. And this is something that we also try to address when we buy companies. We want to talk to every founder, like Tim Schumacher said on our interview, every time we go into the call with the founder, one of the first questions is why you're selling the company. What's your personal reason? And it could be burnout, it could be that, you want to spend time with your family or anything. But that way we can structure the deal with you, right? We're not going to offer a 3-year earnout period to somebody that wants to, go into the jungle and just, completely uh, detach themselves from the world because they don't want to do this anymore, right? So, yeah, how to approach an acquisition, the whole communication with a potential acquirer if burnout is the reason for you to sell the company.
Yeah. Well, again, I would like to split my answer in two perspectives. So for people
Sure.
who aren't deep in burnout already at this time and are already in the process of selling their company, I think the homework for founders and entrepreneurs that we have to do, and that is a general requirement of the entrepreneurial job, let's say, is to make yourself unnecessary in the process. That's a big goal of entrepreneurship, actually, as a founder. My big goal is to build a structure, processes. Well, some people call it machine. Some people don't like that because it sounds a little bit cold. But whatever you call it, the big goal is to be unnecessary, to make myself unnecessary for the company, or redundant, you could say. So for everybody listening, I would say do your homework, actually. Make sure that the company is not dependent on you fully and solely, because that's also something that raises the pressure on you, right? If you're so important to the company that you can't take a single day off, then of course, A, this is a lot of pressure for you. And B, it's a design mistake, actually. This shouldn't be the case. So if you find yourself in that position, I think you have something to do over the next months, years. And this is company building, this is organizational structure, this is company culture, this is team building, all of that. This is leadership. And this is the core of entrepreneurial work as I see it. So that's the bigger context I think we have to keep in mind. If you are already very deep in both burnout and in your due diligence about to sell the company, then radical honesty, I think, is the only thing that can help, because you can't hide this. You shouldn't hide this. It will just fall on your feet at some later point. And if you're at this point right now, then you have to be open about it. But I would hope that many people listening, or founders out there in general, are not in that combination of deep burnout and due diligence last mile, so they can steer the ship in a better direction in the months and years to come.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Well, I think that's a brilliant advice, just radical transparency. But coming back to the whole, what if it hurts me? What if it hurts my company? Um, I think, and this is also something that we talked about with a few other founders that are coming to Code Talks. By the way, we are going to talk about about burnout at Code Talks. And Toby, I think you're joining us too, right?
Not sure, but might be.
Okay, fingers crossed. All right, so again, very interesting, important topic. We're bringing it to the stage. We're going to talk about it live again. And one of the things that we discussed before doing this kind of topic is that in the future, if you're selling your company due to burnout, one other concern that founders have is that, obviously you are just talking with your acquirers, maybe nobody knows that, that this is your reason, but they're still afraid, concerned that this is going to get out. And next time when they're out of the weeds, they will go, maybe build another company, try to raise funds, and the VCs will magically know that there has been a burnout and maybe this person is not reliable, they don't want to deal with that or whatever. So again, maybe you're right. There should be a mindset shift in the founders, but maybe we should talk about a bigger mindset shift with the VCs and just the whole acceptance of the whole process.
Absolutely. And the scenario you just painted, so let's think about that. So you're out there again, have recovered, and you're afraid that your new investor or potential investor finds out about you having had a burnout, right? And declines your startup, right? And doesn't fund you. I would honestly, deeply and honestly say this is a gift from the gods. Why? Because if somebody says no to you because you've had a burnout, think about working with that person or institution in the future, right? Just imagine what kind of perspective and mindset this demonstrates. And you can be thankful that this is a no because you wouldn't have wanted to work with that person in the future. There are other challenges coming your way, not mental health challenges, just normal, regular business challenges. And think about how that person will probably deal with those problems in relation to you and how fair or unfair it's probably going to be. So wonderful. They have just weeded themselves out, and I I would be so thankful for hearing that. Yeah.
Okay, so they dodged a bullet, you think?
Yes. Yeah.
All right.
Exactly.
Okay, that's an interesting approach. Right. I mean, this is a very healthy approach. I think like, yeah, if this one didn't fund me, there is another one, there is another one. But still, I think the little the little concern, it still lives in your head. Like, what if? What if they all know about it? What if they all like don't accept it? I think that's something a lot of founders think about.
Yeah, yeah. I can speak from experience and from the many conversations I've had with other founders, some of who have gone through burnout. And I can say that there is life after burnout. There is company building after burnout. There is investor relations after burnout. There is funding after burnout. All of that happens. All of that is still there. All of that can still work out. So I wouldn't blow this out of proportion. And but I think what you just said is important to imagine. So, what if this happens? What if everybody says no? And I think we're almost going back to meditation, to understanding this is your mind playing a trick on you. Most of the worries in your own head are just that. They're worries, not reality, and they're in your own head, right? There are so many founders out there who have built and funded successful businesses after burnout, that this is not a real, tangible issue. Yes, you might get a rejection from a couple of VCs, of course, yeah. Just as I might get a couple of rejections from, I don't know, friends or clients or coworkers or whatever. But this is not a general no to everything and from everybody. I think that it's really important to keep this in perspective. And this is not the end of the world. Absolutely not. Right.
Okay. All right. That's a very positive note. Since we're coming to an end of our conversation, and I could go on for a while. I have a few more questions. Um, like I said, it's late night here already. Yeah, what I wanted to ask is basically to maybe sum it up. So, what would be your flow that you would recommend to follow to a founder that's experiencing some symptoms, maybe not already the loss of all the emotions, maybe not everything is as gloomy, to call it deep depression, but they see that they're overwhelmed. They see that it's not as exciting, good, joyful as it used to be. So, what would be the general thing, the general strategy that you would recommend?
Yeah, yeah. I'll try my hand on that to give a brilliant summary. I would say it all starts with opening up more. And by opening up more, I don't mean you have to start with your investor. No, you don't. But opening up more can be in your private life, in conversations with people you think do have that depth and could understand what you're talking about. Not everybody will. This is the first thing I get used to and practice opening up with people you trust. Then a second step could be evaluating therapy. And if you have one or two sessions with someone and they tell you that everything is fine, but good for you, of course, but trying this out and seeing that this doesn't hurt, that it can be really great, actually. I think that is another step. A more tactical thing on the business side, I would say, is start doing this entrepreneurial work of transforming your company, of starting the process of making yourself unnecessary, of making yourself redundant. This has so many advantages. It takes the pressure off of you. It helps the team grow. It helps the whole company become more resilient if it doesn't just depend on one single wonderful, charismatic CEO person. That's not healthy for nobody, not for the team, not for you, not for the organization. Third step, and maybe fourth, yeah, um, try gaining that bigger perspective. I think this is I know I'm sounding like a broken record, but I don't care. The bigger perspective is what solves most of the problems for you. And again, there's so many ways to do that, to meditate, to go out in nature, to feel connected with nature, with being more deeply in your partnership, in your friendships, starting or getting back into a religious practice or something like that. I think if you don't have that, however you want to start that journey, I think if you don't have that in whatever kind, you will continue to run against walls. I'm saying that, so I want to motivate people to to start that journey as soon as possible. And for those who have gone through burnout, that's one of the gifts that most of these people have. We understand that there must be a bigger perspective, right? Because it just doesn't work any other way.
Right. Okay. I think that was a pretty brilliant summary of what we talked about. Thank you, Toby. All right. Well, it's been a great pleasure talking with you, as always. But I also want to give a shout out to you and what you do. You have your new company, and you're doing a great thing helping teams find their culture, build their culture, and work more healthily and happily remotely. So Can you talk about it a little bit? How to find you, what to work with you on, and yeah.
Thank you so much for saying that and for bringing that up. Yeah. Buildingbetterteams.co is the project's website. So yeah, it's actually it's a masterclass for founders and leaders. I just work with the founders and leaders, not with the team. I'm invisible for the team because I think it's crucial that founders and leaders learn and learn to build their own culture, do team building, and build stronger and more resilient teams, and to really strive to achieve both. This, on the one hand, a more healthy, a more resilient team, but also a more productive and successful team. This is not in contradiction in any way, and I think this is still a problem that I see with many founders that say, well, I need to work 12-hour days because there's no other way to be successful. Or I need to crack the whip with my employees because there's no other way to be successful. And there really is. So what we've talked about in the last hour is a big part of that work. Also making that journey as a founder and leader to build a better structure, to build a healthier structure, to make yourself redundant and unnecessary. And I think we need more of that because it's better for all parties involved, for the employees, for the teams, for the founders themselves, for the organization, and at the end of that chain also for VCs and stakeholders and shareholders. So I think better teams and founders with a bigger perspective, let's stay with this language, is something that we need. Yeah. Thank you.
Okay, no problem. How to find you if people listening want to get a bit of that?
Yeah, yeah. I think my personal website is the best address to go to, tobias.co, tobias.co. You will find the project mentioned there, Building Better Teams, but also I'm writing a sporadic newsletter that's also focused around these topics. So that might be a good way actually to keep the topic in the back of your mind, I think. Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Toby. All right, well, it's been great talking with you, like I said, and it's really good to know that there is a way back from a burnout and there is a way to deal with that and bring the findings from that experience into your future and grow from there. So, thank you for the conversation. It's been absolutely amazing. And yeah, hope to do it again sometime.
Thank you for making space for this topic and offering your platform. Wonderful. Thank you.
Sure. Take care.
Bye.